Okay, so that was at 3:41. I came back, so that means at 3:39, more or less, I was here. I'll give it like another minute, and if not, that means that I'm screwed and I have to chase the freaking messenger around the map, maniac. Because maybe it didn't reset when the servers restart. I have no idea. Yeah, actually, man, started clipping through the 30, 40, actually, by now, I guess, hours of stream that I have for official hardcore. Trying to see if I can get some clips there. And the plan for the channel has always been to be an MMO related channel. I started off by posting for the YouTube channel. I mean, I started off by posting Diablo content because it's what I had been doing at the point, and it's, it actually helped because a lot of those videos were far more successful for for the first few videos of a channel that I was expecting. And I know it's going to take time to replicate that with the content I actually want to do. And I actually want to talk a little bit about why people want to replay the leveling experience over and over and over again, which is essentially what hardcore WoW is for the majority of people that play it from a game that was released in 2004 rather than try any of the new MMOs. And with that, I want to pivot on why I think that the direction MMOs went with. Uh, yeah, Messenger. Been waiting. 6 minutes. Might be walking around path somewhere. All right. So yeah, I wanted to pivot into a video about hardcore WoW after I do a few compilations to test out how things mix and match. I'll probably be doing a longer video on why I think the the direction might change for the better in terms of MMOs coming in the future. And I know that that's not a common take, that most people say like, oh, the magic is gone, the nostalgia was what was driving it, nothing's going to be new again. um most games are solved before they even launch, etc, etc, etc. But I actually think that if anything, it's just been because there's been no alternative. Like a friend of mine told me a story once, and he said like the McDonald's next to where he was sitting, next to where he lives, was a shit show, and it was barely functioning. The service was horrible. It was dirty, etc. And they kept it that way for years. And then a Popeyes opened next to the McDonald's. And then they got their shit together. Why? Because there was competition. And I think that the same thing applies to video games, realistically. Because all of the trends during the golden age of the next big thing period, when everyone was trying to copy WoW's formula but didn't manage to do it better, and then that led to data that meant that none of the executives and sales and marketing people and spreadsheet jockeys that were making the decisions actually wanted to invest in an MMO because they're so expensive, that we got left in the West with all of the MMOs from 10 plus years ago. But now you're actually getting a change in, everybody can notice inflation's up, and financial reasons behind that are actually what's going to push these companies to be scared of innovation and newcomers, whereas before they couldn't because they were the only ones that had access to very, very cheap capital and financing. That's changing. So all it takes is one good MMO, one studio that can make a good MMO that has a good leveling experience, that's not just expedited for the sake of the end game, that just makes you feel like you're going on an adventure the way that WoW did in 2004, makes you introduces you to all of the gameplay loops um, that you'll be dealing with throughout the game, manages to make a dynamic system that doesn't require time gated dailies, weeklies, and whatnot, FOMO tactics, 1% collectibles, and seasons and ladders that breed toxicity and alienate the more casual player base. One studio that does that well is going to be the alternative. That's going to be the Popeyes to the McDonald's that we currently have. And once that happens, trust me, they will be scared, because if you look at all of the games that launched in the last few years, right? Uh, if you look at the interest in New World, at the when Lost Ark was brought to by Amazon to the West, look at all the interest around games that turn out to be bad. For example, like Throne and Liberty. You look at the interest in Wayfinder, despite it being the way that it was on release of early access, which we took a look at before, it was atrocious. The servers were not ready for that amount of traffic. And all of these things combined, you see like 1 million concurrent players playing these games when they release. Now they don't stick around, and they leave because the games we've been getting so far are just bad for various reasons. Either they're badly managed, they lack content, or both, or they lack gameplay loops, etc. They're not good games. But if and also you have the success of the single player games out there. You have the success of it all started with like Skyrim and Witcher 3, and then you had Elden Ring, and now you have Baldur's Gate. And all of these games are games, if you think about it, that the technology is there for them to be so large in scope and so artificially dynamic, in the sense that, sure, it's still a static game. There's a finite number of ways you can play it, but that number is so big for a casual player that it simulates the experience of a changing world that they used to get from an MMO and an MMO exclusively. So imagine Billy playing Elden Ring or Baldur's Gate 3. Like, he can do the things in the order he can do. The interactions that he has with the characters actually change the way that the story unfolds before him. So when he's talking to someone in Baldur's Gate, and one of the options he picks will lead to a confrontation that has repercussions in the game and will lead to you not getting help by that character, or even putting obstacles in your way, that changes his experience in much the same way as an interaction with an actual player would in an MMO. So for Billy, that's the same thing, right? He doesn't care whether it's a dialogue tree, an if then else dialogue tree, or eventually something like ChatGPT behind the dialogues, or another Billy from Wisconsin or whatever, or Nebraska, right? That's talking to him. He doesn't care. It's the same thing. He wants an adventure. None of the MMOs are giving it to him because all of them are rushing you to endgame because that's the only part worth playing. Which I ask, why the hell do we not start at endgame if that's the only part worth playing, and just ditch the whole leveling process if you're not going to put any time and effort into it? And that's actually what I want to pivot from that. I want to go for a series where I'm taking a look at all of the I'm not gonna do like what other people, I know many other people have done something like this. I'm not gonna look at like every single MMO. I'm gonna look at the top like 5 or 6, at least the Western ones that people are playing now. I'm gonna probably give it like 30 to 40, maybe 50 hours each on stream, and I'll make a series to explain what the new player experience does. And I'll do my best, like even the ones that I've played extensively, like World of Warcraft, or I don't know, Albion, and even others that I've tried but not that much, like New World and Guild Wars 2 or Elder Scrolls Online, things like that, or even Star Wars: The Old Republic, if they don't put it into maintenance mode by the time I actually get to it. Um, and I want to do my best to play those games as if I were a new player that didn't know anything about the game. And I think I don't want to form a prejudice before I even start, but just from WoW that I'm extremely familiar with, I don't know exactly what the leveling experience is right now because I haven't tried it. I'm not gonna let this guy die. I'm not gonna. That was close. Yeah, I don't want to form like like form a prejudice before I start. But if their leveling experience is anything like I remember it, and it wasn't that long ago when I did it, I raised some like allied races that I was missing, like at the end of Shadowlands, I think. But I don't think it's changed that much. I think you'll find that when you start off as a new player that's never seen anything about the game, number one, there's very few reasons to do that, because if you look at any end game content to get excited about, uh, no two people's UIs looks the same. If you're looking at a high end mythic raid or a high end mythic plus pusher or a high end PvPer, their interfaces are insane, and that's just bloat. Then you have 20 years worth of content, that you have 1,000 mounts that you can collect, and then obviously each one of them the value is diluted. You have 10,000 versions of shoulder pad transmogs, 10,000 helms, etc., 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 10,000 swords, thousands of pets. I think the last achievement they put in at Dragonflight is like 2,500 pets. I'm not even sure if there's enough in the game currently to get that, but Annie Fusho would probably know. And yeah, and then you start the story, right? And you get I'm assuming they still have Exile's Reach, which is nice. It's like it introduces you to how your class plays. It's nice, but then you get plopped into the middle of a world, and if you don't choose a timeline from Chromie, which most players might not know, I don't know how good the prompts are. Then you end up in battle for Azeroth, and you're treated like this grand hero of the Horde of the Alliance that's vanquished 17 dragons, 5 gods, and saved the world on 25 different occasions. And basically, what you get from that is a player going like, "What are you talking about? I haven't gotten any time to get invested into any of these storylines, and even if you try, the level scaling and the expedited pace of the leveling process actually gets you to the point where you want to find out a storyline. Let's assume you go to Westfall now, like where we are in WoW Classic. You would go to Westfall and you want to see what happens with what's up with the Defias, what's up with the Murlocs, what's up with the Gnolls, and everything else. Well, by the time you finish this area, you're probably so far ahead in level that the game's going to indicate for you a completely different area that you have no idea about, you have no connection with, you don't know the characters, you don't know the story, you don't know what's going on there. You probably feel completely lost, or even it'll send you to a different expansion that could have happened years apart from the zone that you just finished. And you're probably only going to be able to do a few zones like this, or worse, like most people probably just spam the dungeons. At that point, again, I'm asking why, if people just want to spam dungeons until they can do Mythic Plus competitively or Mythic rating or that, then why do we still have a leveling experience at all? And why doesn't everyone just start off with, like, you know, as a boosted character for free instead of having to go for all of this content, which is a shame because the content is great. Meanwhile, in Classic, you start off and you're nobody, right? You're nobody, and you're like, there's some wolves, kill them. Or, okay, fine, now we have some problems with the kobolds, cool. You've handled all of this stuff. There's some Defias doing some stuff in the vineyard. That's amazing. All right, you've handled all of this bullshit here. We're good, but the people down at the end need your help. And that pace is actually what creates immersion. Sure, you can argue that it can be a bit less tedious, there can be a bit less walking around, or the experience could go a little bit faster. But the point is, you're introduced to an ability, you get like an hour or even two until you get the next ability. We're never gonna find this guy, are we? Anyway, you get an ability, you get introduced to it. Um, you have time to place it in your rotation. The abilities, let's be honest, are not that complicated, but they are more transformative. Like, for example, when you're a paladin, you get divine protection, or you get blessing of freedom, or you get blessing of protection. You know, you're automatically getting, or exorcism, right? You're automatically getting something that, or even purify, right? You're getting something that gives you more options. It's not just another damage ability in your rotation. And you can say this is better or the other better, but the point is that time between getting new abilities, the time between having meaningful events for the story, or the time that it takes between being introduced to one storyline or one faction or one set of characters or one zone to the other, is long enough for you to be able to simulate it, and that's how you become immersed into a world. Again, yes, it could be faster. It doesn't have to be this slow. That's part of the beauty of it. And the reason why it's so slow, the reason why is you still have options, right? Like, you can still choose to go Westfall, you can go up to Loch Modan, which I did this time around, or you can go to the Night Elf area and start there if you want. So there is some variation that you can do in terms of choosing which areas you're leveling in. But the pace is actually good. The complexity is actually low enough for it to be enjoyable. But at the same time, like, you don't have the same options you do in retail. Like in retail, if you're in a group and you pull 5 elites without wanting to, or on top of the ones you already pulled, nothing's gonna happen. The tank's gonna get aggro just by being a tank. He's gonna pop like 30 defensives or a straight up immunity to handle it, and the DPS are just gonna blow them up, right? Well, here, if you do that, then, well, you're in trouble because the tank won't be able to aggro all of them. And if you're a DPS and you actually get meleeed by like like 3 elites at the same time, you're probably gonna die. And if you're even if you're the tank, you're probably gonna get killed by a big unexpected pull. So that's it's not that it's more difficult. It's much easier on paper, but it does make you. The point is, it's extremely easy by comparison, as long as you're careful about what you're doing. Like, you don't have that much of a margin for error. If you do something really stupid in terms of like tactical decision making, like where to stand, where to pull, what to pull, etc., you're gonna get very punished. And in hardcore that shows, because obviously you getting punished leads to you dying. So there's that. We finally got the messenger. That is absolutely insane, because that was exactly at the end of where I wanted to take my rant. So yeah.